Hey everyone,
Oh, hello, everyone.
how you doing?
We are live. Nerdy bunch. How's everyone
Nice.
today?
Ellie Mae's here. Hi, Ellie Mae.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not too bad. I'm not too bad.
Good.
I'm doing good
Or should
too.
I say, da sunt bine, mulțumesc. Și tu?
Ja, foarte bine.
Foarte bine,
Mulțumesc,
foarte
foarte
bine.
bine.
Chad agrees.
Yeah. We were just saying, how are you? You know,
Oh,
ce
okay.
mai faci? In Romanian, ce mai faci? Or ce mai faceți is how are you, or how are you, formal, informal. And then you say good is bine, but very good is foarte bine. She too means and you, or if it's formal, you say și dumneavoastră, and dumneavoastră is the formal of you. So yeah,
And ce mai faci is often shortened to ce faci in my experience.
ce faci? Yep, yeah,
Ce
of course,
faci. But
of course, yeah. Ce faci? Ce mai faci? Ce mai faceți? Yeah. It's a cool little language, and I guess obviously if everyone is joining us tonight, yeah, I'm going to go over the brief history of the Romanian language, and yeah, it's pretty fun. Romania is really cool. I enjoy it simply because if you were here, if you watched on the replay of my history of the Hungarian language, because I speak English as my first language, Romanian is a lot easier, although it does have a lot of tricky components, and I'll get into some of those things. It's still a heck of a lot easier than Hungarian. And if you speak another Romance language, maybe comment or put in the if you're also here on the live chat and you speak another Romance language, so Portuguese, Spanish, French, Italian, or anything else. Be very interesting for me because I grew up learning French in school, and then I learned Spanish as a kid, and then I also learned Italian back in like 2016, 17, but all briefly. So I'd be interested if anyone is either fluent in or is a second or third language where you speak something like, again, Spanish, Portuguese, French, Italian. Be interesting to make some comparisons. But yeah, it'd be kind of cool. So the only background that I want to get into is just I've been learning Romanian for about, I guess, just a little over a year, maybe 14 months. I'm currently studying a B1 Romanian course. So I'm already pretty okay on to A2. So that just means that I can't speak like all of it. I'm still very much a beginner, but reading, for example, is not too bad. And when I go to Romania, and I was only in Romania just last week, actually, I was in Cluj, and yeah, I got along pretty well. And I was able to converse in Romanian with quite a few people. And you know, I don't study Romanian every day, but it because it's closer to English, I'm able to sort of memorize it a little better than Hungarian, which I have to practice every day, or else I forget it. And then if you forget Hungarian, you're screwed. But Romanian was quite nice. So yeah, that's really all. And yeah, I don't know. What about you, Joe? I know you mentioned a little bit too last time that you worked with people care in a care sort of facility with those from Moldova, but I'm just curious about your studying of Romanian.
yeah, so I guess I speak some basic Romanian. I think I'm not as good as you, but as you mentioned, I used to be a care worker before I became a luthier, and I worked in a care home with some other staff that were from Moldova, and at the time I was learning Romanian, so we'd practice a lot with each other, and so apparently I speak Romanian with a Russian accent, but um, and yeah, there's some more Russian loanwords and things as well, I think, but. Yeah, so I speak some basic level of Romanian. When I've spoken to, so I've been to Romania twice, and I got on okay with the basics. Whenever I speak to Romanians in London, because there's quite a few, I find I can have a basic conversation, but anything more than that, kind of, so it's basic, but it's there. So
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, it's definitely Oh, I don't know what happened with my.
We've
Sorry about
lost
this,
your
guys.
camera, yeah.
I know. What happened here?
Shall I talk a bit more about how I learnt it while you're sorting that out, I guess?
There
Oh,
I
no,
am.
you're back.
I think I just hit something. I'm so sorry. I
Okay.
must have hit something accidentally. All is good now. Yeah, yeah. So one of the main reasons why I'm learning Romanian is in the program that I'm in right now with my master's degree. And I may have, again, if apologize if I mentioned this earlier, which I may have on a previous stream, but so I'm studying the history of Central Europe, and I could have chosen between basically most of the neighboring languages of Hungary except German. So to the north, to the east, and of course to the south. Um, and so that would have been a lot of Slavic languages or Romanian, essentially. And Slavic languages can be tricky. I know that because my mom speaks Macedonian, and my grandfather spoke Russian as well as Macedonian and Bulgarian. And then I did spend a small amount of time. I mean, I lived in Poland for about a year, so I learned Polish. And then I also learned a little Czech back in like 2019. I just was curious, so I just was learning some. But yeah, it's hard. It's very hard. Slavic languages are pretty tricky. So technically, the easiest language is Romanian. And then I went to Romania even before I decided to study Romanian, and I just fell in love with it. It's such a beautiful country, and there are so many different cities that are just gorgeous in Romania, and they're historical, and they're small, and they're quaint, and they're beautiful, and castles, and all this kind of stuff. So I've been able to see a lot of the country because it's quite big geographically. But again, always been interested in the language because, as we'll get to it, it is a Romance language, but it's also so different from other Romance languages, and I'm getting get into that reason. But I find it nice, and I never thought I would ever learn Romanian. To be honest with you, I never, like, even when I was growing up and stuff. Like, I knew people who spoke Romanian. I grew up with people who spoke Romanian. I always got along with people from Romania because we're next door, and but I never really thought of it until I applied for the program and then started to learn and realized, oh, it's not too bad. I can kind of pick it up, not pretty easy in some sense. Again, there are tricky parts that I'll get into with my presentation, but I enjoy it, and the reading is not too bad. There's a lot of words, and I'll get into it, that can be recognized for English. But yeah, that's kind of my feeling. Um, I also with Joe, did you um, like when you were learning, what kind of like how were you learning? Were you learning from people? Were you learning in a course? Were you reading? Like, I'm just curious about that too.
So I had a book from what's it called? Teach Yourself, I think the series is called. It's quite good. And I was using Duolingo, but as I say, really the thing that makes it stick most is practicing it with people. So
Yeah.
yeah, I was learning with those too, but it was really that made it stick rather. I'd just like to say also hello to everyone in the chat. We got some.
Of course.
Hello to Ellie Mae and Claire and a few others.
Hey guys.
But yeah, so book, Duolingo, and Moldovans.
That's right. And yeah, Moldovan. Moldovan, there's always this weird kind of thing going on between Romanian and Moldovan because they are very close languages, except, as we pointed out, there's a lot more Russian influence in Moldova. So they say things maybe a little bit differently, but really the languages overlaps, I think, over 90% of the time. So it's quite kind of cool.
Yeah, it's pronunciation and loan words, I think, is the main difference, but they're basically
Yeah.
the same language.
Yeah, basically. And I know I've met a lot of people who are Moldovan who live in Romania because for them, they have higher wages. So it's much like what happens when Romanians go to Italy, let's say, or Romanians go to England. They're going there specifically because of the EU. They can work, but they also get better wages. So Moldovans, pardon me, will go to Romania for the same reason, because even though wages are considered lower, in Romania, they're higher than Moldova. Moldova, unfortunately, I think is like the poorest country in Europe at the moment. Pretty close with Belarus. Ukraine is also really poor, but I think Moldova is like the poorest. But again, I'd like to go there actually one day to see those, hear those differences. But anyway, yeah, I've always been curious about that. But I think I put my slides up, Chad. I was wondering if you could
Oh,
throw them
sure,
up.
sure. I'll
That's
put
cool.
put them up. Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, just the basic background is just it's just a very, I don't know, it's just a very interesting, different kind of language, and I'll get into some reasons why. And it's also cool that Joe knows some as well, because again, it's kind of a different language. It's not like Hungarian and Romanian, not universal languages by any stretch of the imagination. So English is obviously the most universal. Spanish, French, Mandarin, they're spoken everywhere. But Hungarian and Romanian, which are the languages I speak, are a bit more selective, I guess, in that way. Um, but yeah, I wanted to go through sort of a brief history here of the Romanian language, and just this, of course, is the flag of Romania. We have the blue, the yellow, and the red. So this is the flag, and sometimes in the past days there was an emblem inside there, kind of a thing, But this is the modern one, and this is a can't remember exactly when this was introduced, but at least since 1989, this has been the flag. So when we talk about Romanian history, we got to go back a long time. We got to go back to around the time of Alexander the Great, and the sort of the Macedonian, and not only the Macedonian conquest of Europe and also of West Asia, Central Asia, South Asia. But just after Alexander died, his kingdom, his Macedonian kingdom broke up into a bunch of different smaller kingdoms. And this is just sort of after Alexander died. This is around the year 300 before Common Era. And we know this because if you look at the bottom right side of the map, where you can see a little piece of Western Turkey called Anatolia, which is sort of sticking out there, and you'll see a word that says Seleucid, and the or Seleucid, excuse me, Seleucid, and that was one of the empires that was, came out of the ashes of Alexander's empire. It also is very important to the Hanukkah story, the Seleucids. But what I want to show you here are some people groups that were in the Balkans around this time. The first one that you're going to notice is, of course, Rome. And Rome, although is now at this point in history in southern Italy and parts of Sicily, they're going to become a major, major player in the Balkans very soon. But if you look at where the coast of the Adriatic Sea is, there's a light red color, and it's called Illyria. So these were a group of people that spoke their own Indo-European language. Although some people claim in Albania, some people claim that one of the Illyrian languages became Albanian. There's no actual strong evidence. It may be true, but who knows? We also have the Macedonians. We have the Thracians, but again, the main sort of most important people groups here for us is sort of right at the top in the light yellow. And these people are called the Dacians. And in Romanian, they're known as the Dachans. And these individuals were, much like a lot of ancient people groups. They had multiple classes in their society. They had warrior classes, and you can kind of Google, like, Dacian warriors, what they look like. They had wars, they had battles, they did all this kind of stuff. And at this time, they were doing pretty well as their own independent people groups. And so they had a language, of course, and their language in English we call Dacian or Dacian, which is what it's known as in Romanian. And they also were probably an Indo-European language, just like Illyria. They made up their own branch. So it's not exactly known if how much, Greek influence was there or how much of other languages, but it's likely that they had their own sort of ancient, very unique Indo-European language. And so they were speaking their language, they were doing their thing. They had this mountainous area. They also had parts of the coastline. They, of course, traded with the Thracians, so there might have been actually some cultural exchange between those two. Not really known exactly how much, but they were doing, fairly well in that area. And what came next was, of course, the Romans. So from what is called Italia, which we can see here is modern day Italy, come the Romans. And the Romans begin to conquest the Balkans, actually in the before Common Era time. And then this is sort of the height of the Roman Empire, which is in 117 after AD in here. This usually stands for the after the death of Christ. We would say, of course, after Common Era or just Common Era now. And this map, of course, isn't Latin. These are different regions in Latin. And we can see two of them that are most important at this point is there was a Roman province called Dacia or Dacia. And then there was another one called Moesia Interior. Um, so these two are where what happened was when the Romans came in, they didn't exactly displace all of the people who spoke Dacian. They did end up conquering, for example, the Illyrian peoples, and they turned, their language basically died, and the Illyrians may have, hid in the mountains, and maybe one of the tribes became the Albanians. That's a theory, uh, not substantiated with evidence, but that could have happened. And of course, they made Dalmatia, and they started speaking Latin. But the Romans brought their language to Dacia and to Moesia Inferior, and there was still a presence of the Dacian people. There's still some linguistic overtones. And so what happened was there was this Latin that came out of this. And of course, for anybody who knows anything about Latin, especially from the Roman Empire, there were two varieties of Latin. One, of course, is known as High Latin, and High Latin was spoken by the upper class people, the nobility, landowners, and especially the senators. So it was people that lived in the cities, within the city walls. And that was a fairly common language of the commoners. It was fairly standardized in some way, although not in the same way that a modern language would be. But High Latin was spoken among the high classes. And then the other Latin, of course, is called Vulgar Latin, and I really kind of like this term, Vulgar Latin, because if you know English, you know what vulgar means. It means to be sort of rowdy and arrogant and kind of like a hooligan. So Vulgar Latin to me sounds like, a bunch of Latin speakers that are rowdy and rowdy hooligans. But of course, at the time, it meant vulgar because it wasn't an upper class language. It was a language of the lower classes. It was the language of, I think soldiers, if I'm not mistaken, slaves, people that lived outside the city walls and so forth. And so Vulgar Latin had a lot of different varieties. And in Dacia and in Moesia Inferior, whatever that Dacian language was, kind of combined in some degree with Vulgar Latin, and it produced what some scholars call Black Sea Latin, or some kind of vulgar mixture of Latin and Dacian. But it's also almost impossible to tell how much Dacian there was because, of course, they have very little written records. But whatever it was, we have this, harmonizing, you could say, of Latin, the vulgar Latin, non-standardized, lower class Latin with this Dacian. And again, whatever Dacian was, we don't really know how it sounded or anything. So that's kind of impossible to tell. But there was somewhat of a marriage between those things. After this, the Roman Empire starts to fall. In the previous slide, we had its height at around 117 Common Era. I think it's around the 5th century when Rome is sacked by a number of barbarian tribes, specifically Germanic barbarian tribes, which we can see here. And by like 500, at least the Roman Empire, and then there becomes, of course, the Eastern Roman Empire. There's sort of a split and so forth. But if we look here, to where modern-day Romania is, it's quite important because it was at a crossroads of a number of different invasions from different quote-unquote barbarian tribes, including the Goths. And the Goths were Germanic peoples. They're actually called an Eastern Germanic peoples. There are no more Eastern Germanic languages. The last one was called Crimean Gothic, which was spoken in Crimea until the 18th century. So they're all gone. But the Goths made their way from Sweden. They went down through the Baltics, and in modern day Romania, they split between the Ostrogoths and the Visigoths. Oster means east, Visigoth means west. And of course, they began to sack Rome. Another group of people that came through the area, came through Dacia and Moesia Inferior, were the Huns, who could have spoken a number of different languages. Again, like Dacians, we don't really know exactly who they were. But this eastern provinces, these sort of northeastern provinces along the Black Sea, are really, really important. And despite the fact that Germanic tribes and the Huns kind of came in, sacked a bunch of places, for whatever reason, the Latin speakers, there's sort of this Dacian Latin mixed speakers, were still able to survive. Some of them went south to the mountains of the Balkans. Some of them went to the coastlines where there were some Greek colonies, and they kind of hid out, and they were lucky enough to avoid, being destroyed essentially by the Huns and the Goths and all these kinds of people. So they kept their language and they kept speaking their Latin. And even though Latin was changing in the West, this Eastern version of Latin was still maintained. I kind of apologize for the quality of this photo because unfortunately it's not the best, but it's a good photo. That's why I used it. But we know that after the barbarian tribes from the east and also from the Germanic peoples, once they conquered Europe and really, put a dent in the Roman Empire, the next group that started to expand were the Slavic peoples, or the Slavs, Slavic tribes. And the Slavic homeland is somewhere between the Baltics and the Black Sea, probably around today parts of Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus. And they made a lot of different migrations, of course, because there's a lot of different, Slavic people. Some went to what today's Russia and Kiev. They became the Kievian Rus, which became the Russian and the Ukraine peoples, and so forth. Some went west to establish Poland and went into Bohemia, which was Czech Republic. But a number of Slavic peoples went south, of course. A number of them, as it is located here between the years 6 and 700, went all the way through and became the Serbs and the Croats and the Bosnians and so forth, and then eventually the North Macedonians and Bulgarians. But if we look between the year 400 and 500, the Slavic peoples ran right through modern-day Romania onto the eastern part of the Carpathian Mountains, between the Carpathian Mountains and the Black Sea. That's where they passed. And they drove a wedge, another wedge, in between the Western Romance speakers. So those that would eventually start becoming Spanish, Italian speakers, French speakers, Catalan speakers, and so forth. And then they drove that wedge to where, if we look at a modern map of Europe, right, we basically find that Romania is cut off from the rest of the Latin speaking world by Slavic groups, in particular Serbs, Slovenes, Croats, etc. So with this, we get another group of influence, which is then the Latin speakers have to trade with, and they have to somehow, be neighbors in some cases with Slavic speakers. And what happens is through osmosis, the Latin that is spoken around this time starts to have some Slavic roots. So even though Romanian as a language is not necessarily developing right now, whatever the Latin was, this kind of Eastern Latin is now becoming more Slavicized in a way, and it's starting to take on features and distinctions again from the West. And so this is one of the reasons why Romania is so unique, is because rather than being influenced by Celtic languages, such as Portuguese and French, which are Western European languages, they're becoming more influenced by the Slavic languages, particularly Bulgarian, and also what would be Ukrainian, like Kievan Rus and Russian and so forth. So it's a very, very kind of interesting influence on that language. Skipping ahead from this, from the 8th century until around the 14th century, we get, and plus 14th century until, of course, the 16th century, we get the expansion of the Ottoman Empire. Of course, the Ottomans begin life when many Turkic tribes did in Central Europe, and a group crossed through and, found themselves near what would today be Istanbul, and they created their own empire, and they spread through what is called Anatolia, the Caucasus, a lot of the Middle East, North Africa. But of course, there was a massive conquest through the Balkans. And, it is said, of course, it is known, I should say, that the Ottomans got all the way to Vienna, and they sacked Vienna twice. The last time I think was in the 1600s, according to this map. This map, by the way, is I kind of found interesting because this is actually the Catalonian language. This is Catalan, essentially, the writing here. Took me a little while to figure that out, which is actually kind of a cool language. But the Ottomans would sack Vienna a couple times. After the last one, they start to decline. However, the main thing to focus, again, is on modern-day Romania. So in this map, we have Transylvania, Moldavia, and Wallachia, and they are all in white because while not being officially necessarily a part of the empire, they certainly were vassal states. And it was also during this time that a gentleman who's very infamous named Vlad the Impaler, was a prince of Wallachia, started to create an uprising, you could say, against the Ottomans. And of course, some of his stories may or may not have gone into Dracula, but certainly there is some lore that is shared there. And he was a very tough guy. I don't need to explain what impaling means, but if you'd like, you can find that on Wikipedia or something like that. But under at least for a few hundred years, what is modern day Romania, Moldavia, Wallachia, and Transylvania were under a sphere of influence of the Turks or of the Ottomans. So now, much like everything else, there becomes a Turkish influence inside of the Latin that is being spoken here. And it's really in this era, this is the Middle Ages and medieval era, this is when Romanian itself begins to kind of be different from Latin, and when it starts to take on its Romanian heritage. And that starts because there are principalities that eventually come by the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries called Romania. And of course, the Romanian people call themselves Romania because they believe that they are the last outposts of the the Roman Empire, excuse me. So they try to bring that idea of being Roman back too. I mean, that's what Romanian means. It means Roman, essentially. And so the Latin is influenced again by a totally different language, in this case, Turkish or Ottoman Turkish, which again will separate it from the other languages in Western Europe. Now, there's a massive decline of the Ottoman Empire that is also very, very important, yet again, to the Romanian language. So in 1878, Russia won a war against the Ottoman Empire called the Russo-Turkish War. I have mentioned it on the Nerdy Bunch before. And the territories of Moldavia and Wallachia gained independence from the Ottoman Empire after this war in 1878. It's a very interesting year because Bosnia, Herzegovina, Montenegro, and Serbia also become independent, along with Bulgaria. So for hundreds and hundreds of years at this point, 400 years plus, these territories, or at least 300 to 400 years, I should say, at this point, these territories that are under the sphere of Ottoman influence, that have a very close relationship to the Ottomans, who are making pledging tributes to the Ottomans are now saved by the Russians. Romania had become a part of the Eastern Orthodox Church prior to this point, and they did that in order to, be more in common with their neighbors, which of course are Ukrainians and Bulgarians and Serbs. And so this is one of the reason, if we look at Moldova, Bessarabia, Wallachia, okay, all of them in Romanian are Eastern Orthodox. Bulgaria is majority Eastern Orthodox, as is Montenegro and Serbia. The only difference here is Bosnia and Herzegovina. Bosnians are mostly Muslim at this point, and Herzegovina mostly Croat, so they're mostly Catholic, but they're still either Christians, one exception with Bosnia. But that was really part of that war, was to take these Christian areas and to release them from their Ottoman rule. And again, very, very important. When I talked a couple weeks ago about Romania in the interwar period, should be noted that in the early 1880s is when Romania got its first king, who was Karl the First or Carol the First, and then from there they had their own kingdom and their own lineage. However, again, with influence now becomes a Slavic influence, and that Slavic influence on um, Romania doesn't just start in the 8th century, but it starts to pick up around the 15th and the 16th century, when Turkish was also influencing it. But very specifically, I want to say Russian is a big influence on the Romanian language, especially as the Romanian language develops into the modern times. So by the time, the late 18th century and into the 19th century happens, Russian now becomes the latest of all of these different influences to really, really impact Romanian. And this is a big example, is that from the 16th century until 1860, Romanian itself was written in the Cyrillic alphabet. The Cyrillic alphabet is very, very famously used by Russians, also Ukrainians, Belarusians, Macedonians, Serbs, and Bulgarians to today. It will become, I believe, the only, if I'm not mistaken, Romance language in history that will use the Cyrillic alphabet. Also, Romanians, again, if I'm not mistaken, are the only Latin speakers that are not Roman Catholic. They happen to be Eastern Orthodox. Of course, the Cyrillic alphabet is not only used in Slavic languages. There are a number of Mongolic languages, Turkic languages, Indo-Iranian languages, etc., and even Caucasian languages that are in Russia or had some Soviet affiliation in previous decades, who also use the Cyrillic alphabet. But it's very influential because it is spread by Russians. Also, by the way, there are some of Uralic languages, many Uralic languages right in the Cyrillic. So if you remember my presentation on Romanian, we looked at languages like Mansi and Khanty and all this kind of stuff. They all use Cyrillic. But I think this is very interesting. I mean, they were very connected to Russia in many different ways. And it wasn't until 1860. So basically, what happened in 1860 was just a couple decades earlier, in 1848, there was a revolution that went throughout Europe. They call it the Spring of Nations. Started in March of that year, ended a year later in 1849. There were revolutions in 17 different cities all over Europe, including Berlin and Rome and Paris and so forth. One and Budapest, Prague, Vienna, and one of the cities was Bucharest. And so by 1860, there was a strong nationalist ideologies and commitments of the Romanian people, and they decided to change their alphabet, sort of to separate themselves a little bit from the Russian heritage, and they adopted the Latin characters, and there have been some spelling reforms. The last one was in 1989 and 1990, so the modern Romanian alphabet that we know today is actually just 30 something years old. But essentially, even though they switched to Cyrillic, 18 years after this was 1878, and they would be released, from their Ottoman vassal state status. Getting into the Romanian itself, as I said, I wanted to sort of give you that background because you can see how the evolution of the language, where we have the Dacian speakers, then they get a Latin influence, then they kind of mix together a little bit, then they're influenced by passing tribes, then Slavic people come in, then Turkish people come in, and then Russian people come in. So it's a very, very interesting different thing. But I always like to talk about, which is what I did with my Hungarian presentation, is to talk about easy aspects of a language and difficult aspects of a language. So this is just subjective. This is just what I think. But I do find that there are some easy or easier, if you want to say that, aspects of Romanian. And again, being someone whose first language is English, might differ if you have, another language as that's your first language. But at least for me, as an English speaker, and it might be the same for other, first language English speakers, is that the Romanian vocabulary, of course, is heavily, heavily based on Latin. Well, so is English. 58% of our vocabulary is based in either Latin or what's called Anglo-Norman French, which also has a lot of roots in Latin. So we have so much Latin in our vocabulary that it's easy to recognize a lot of words and that you can basically guess what they are. And for the most part, there are what are called false friends, which means sometimes a word in Romanian that looks the same in English might have a different meaning, but actually for the most part, I'd say in a majority of cases, you look at a word in Romanian, and if you speak English, you can at least guess to what it is, and that is a great deal of help when trying to learn the language. I would also say if anyone else speaks again another Romance language, many of your words are based in Latin, so of course you would be able to recognize a lot of words, and it make it easier for you to learn the language as well. The next thing is sentence structure. Again, going back to Hungarian, it's such a different thing. But in Romanian, there is quite a good logic to it, and the sentence structure is not that difficult for English speakers or Germanic speakers, I would say. It's obviously a lot more like a Romance language because that's what it is, and other Romance languages. One aspect for that is that in Romanian, an adjective is put after a noun, which is common in all Romance languages. Whereas, of course, because English is a Germanic language, we put an adjective before the noun. But really, even when an English speaker learns Spanish or Italian or whatever, it's really not that hard to do. It's really not terribly difficult. You just move a word across. There are prepositions in Romanian. Pentru is for, de la is from, uh, despre, I think is about, or maybe I'm wrong about that one. I think anyway, dad is but, she is and, like, it's really not that bad. And it's pretty much, similar to English. And again, there's a little thing here and there, little tricky stuff here and there, but it's pretty good. The next one, again, this is more for people who have to learn English as a second language or a third or fourth language, is that there are only 5 verb tenses. And for some languages, that might seem like a lot. But in Romanian, there's only 5 verb tenses. Again, if you're trying to learn English, there are 13 verb tenses, which is the absolute most difficult, aspect of English. And if you want to learn French, there's 12. But there's only 5 in Romanian. So there's past simple, past perfect, present simple, present perfect, and future, one future. I also mentioned, I think a couple weeks ago, and also again, probably in previous slides, is that certain areas of Romania and Moldova, it's actually quite common not to use past perfect or present perfect. So in some places, not in the cities, not really in Bucharest, not really in Cluj, but in some areas, people just disregard learning the perfect tense and all they use is 3 tenses. And at that point, it's even easier. But I will say that, you can be easily understood by almost everyone if you just want to use the simple tenses and you don't want to use the perfect tenses. So I find that easy. And then another easier language is, the phonetic alphabet. One tricky part is that in Romanian does have a combination of what are called diphthongs and triphthongs. So it's usually when we put two vowels together or three vowels together, you might make different sounds or sounds that aren't exactly 100% phonetic, but there's a logic to them, and you just have to sort of hear Romanian people speak. But I would say, again, over 90% of the time, Romanian is very phonetic. You just, pronounce each letter for the most part. You get to a double vowel and you just have to tell the person to pronounce it maybe a little differently. But I will say the consistency of the Romanian alphabet and Romanian reading is quite good. On to some difficult aspects of Romanian, and some of this is very interesting, again, if you speak another Romance language. First of all, there are 5 cases in Romanian. Much like there was in Latin, they had cases. All Romance languages and many Germanic languages, Dutch, Swedish, Danish, Norwegian, English, of course, and then Spanish, French, Portuguese, and Italian dropped our cases. And that's why it's kind of easy when you drop a case. It's certainly not the most cases. I know German has 4, I think Greek has 5, Albanian has 5 or 6. Slavic languages usually have either 6 or 7. Hungarian has 18, Finnish has 14, or 13 or 14, so it's tough. But if you speak German at all, you'll probably know the 4 of the 5 cases, you'll know for sure. So Romanian has a nominative case, accusative case, dative case, genitive case, and the last one is called vocative case, which does exist in some, but not all Slavic languages. And so it has to do with direct object, indirect object, possession. And then vocative is a really funny one because in some languages, when you call out for someone's name, then their name, the last letter will change, which is just weird, like my name, Mark, in some languages that have vocative, my name might be Marco or Marku. And when you call out to me, that's what you would call me. You wouldn't call me Mark, you would say Marco or Marku or whatever. So that's something that they do have in Romanian, which again is kind of interesting. That's probably a Slavic borrowing. Another aspect that also is interesting is, most Romance languages have a masculine and feminine nouns. Of course, we don't have this in English. I don't think the Scandinavian languages have it. Hungarian is a gender neutral language. But in Romanian, we have 3, and that also is a borrowing from Latin, which is there are masculine, feminine, and neuter nouns. Unlike German, however, I find German very hard to figure out what is masculine, what is feminine, what is neuter. It's the hardest part of German. In Romanian, it's not that bad, and I'll get into that in a later slide. But really, to discern between masculine, feminine, and neuter is not as difficult as German. So if you do speak German, you already know the cases, so you already have that. Now, mind you, they're used differently, of course, in Romanian than German, but you'll also know if you have learned German and you find discerning between masculine, feminine, and neuter are hard, much easier in Romanian. The next aspect are called reflective pronouns, and these ones are so interesting to me because some verbs, like the word to go, if I'm just going to say I go, I just use the word merg. Now I could use the word I, which is eu, so I could say eu merg, but Romanian is a pro-drop language, and so you don't always have to say the pronoun. However, there's another version of going, which is if I'm going to say I go, I say mă duc, and mă duc means myself go. So what you're really saying in that form is I myself go. And so this is why I'm talking about reflective verbs and reflective pronouns. I myself do something. You yourself do something. He, she, it, etc. They themselves, ourselves. It's a little tricky because they also cases are reflected by this, and this can be tricky. I know for me that's the hardest part of Romanian, but it's very beautiful. I actually really like the fact that they are reflective. So I myself go. I when I did a translation in the Hungarian lesson. I said, I'm going up to my apartment. The I am going part, and that in Romanian, you have to say, eu mă duc. So you have to say, I myself am going up to my apartment. And I just find that, again, to be really interesting. And the last one, there's a sound in Romanian. It's one sound, but it's represented by two letters. And this is called an A with circumflex or an I with circumflex, which looks like little hats. And it can be a little hard to pronounce. It's actually just pronounced and it's in words like in. So we might say, I am going to Budapest, or I live in Budapest, which is locuiesc în Budapest, or Budapesta, actually, Budapesta. Locuiesc în Budapesta. So that un appears in a lot of words. Întreba is another common word. Mănâncă means to eat. That's another word. So you have to say this. I don't think it's that difficult, just because to me, I think it kind of sounds French or Slavic. I'm not really sure, but maybe for some speakers, it might be tough to just kind of smile a little and say, It's not like the schwa sound, which does exist in Romanian, but you have to kind of close it here and just say, So that might be difficult. In the end, I wanted to talk a little bit about the distribution of the Romanian language in the Balkans, because there are varieties of Romanian. There's not just one form of Romanian, there are 4 different forms. And the first form is called Daco-Romanian. This goes back, what is Daco? It goes back to the Dacians. So again, this is the idea that there is probably some Dacian influence, maybe not necessarily on the vocabulary of Romanian, but probably on the grammar of Romanian, at least to some extent, and a historical connection between the Dacian people and the Latin speakers. So Daco-Romanian is the official language in the republics of Romania and Moldova, but there's also small communities that speak Romanian in the neighboring countries, particularly Ukraine, a little bit of Hungarian, but not Hungary, but not as much anymore, in Serbia, and in the northern part of Bulgaria. So wherever there's green on this map, there are neighboring communities of Romanian speakers. However, we see a sort of dark pink color and a dark yellow color. These individuals in the Balkans, and this is a Slavic word, are called the Vlach. And the Vlach comes from the word Wallachia. And these individuals mostly speak a language called A-Romanian, so you just stick an A before Romanian, or Meglano-Romanian. A-Romanian is spoken mainly, maybe about 500,000 people or less, but mainly, again, in the Balkans, so in southwestern Bulgaria, throughout the Republic of North Macedonia, parts of northern Greece, and also in Albania. Meglano-Romania has one community. There's only one area that's spoken. The northern part of their community is in North Macedonia, and the southern part is actually in Greece. And so when I was a child, when I was in Macedonia as a child, we were very aware of the Vlach people because there were a number of them at the time in Skopje. So Skopje, of course, had a number of different groups. There were the Roma peoples, there were the Macedonian Slavs, there were Serbs, there were Bosniaks, there were Turks, there were Albanians, there were Sephardic Jews who speak Ladino, and there were the Vlach. Very multicultural city. Unfortunately, they're not in Skopje anymore. They're in more of the south part of North Macedonia. And I did not get a chance. I really wanted to go to a city where I think about 20% were Vlach speakers. And when I was there in the summer, I didn't get an opportunity, but I do find it to be a very fascinating version of Romanian. And the last one, if we look up to where it says Croatia, we can see that there are 2 yellow spots. And these are 2 communities called Istro-Romania. And the Istro-Romanians, that language is spoken by less than 1,000 people who speak the language, but around 200 people or less speak it on a daily basis and are fluent in the language. So it's a very small group of people, most likely, and sadly, along with our Romanian and Meglino-Romanian, they are endangered languages. But in this language, in Istro-Romanian, it's very, very heavily influenced, of course, by Croatian. They have a pretty strong accent that is very Slavic, and even certain words are replaced by Croatian words. And just by example, two numbers from 1 to 10 in Romanian, the number 9 is pronounced Noa, and 10 is pronounced Zece. However, in Istro-Romanian, 9 is pronounced Debet, and 10 is pronounced Deset. Well, where does that come from? That comes from Slavic languages. It's the same in Croatian. It's the same in Macedonian, Bulgarian. I also think it's the same in Serbian. So they've replaced the words 9 and 10 that would have been Romanian, and they've replaced it with predominantly Slavic words. So again, this is the distribution of here Romanian still spoken in the Balkans. Obviously not as much as during the Roman times, but they're still thriving. Last one, what I wanted to do is I wanted to break down, rather than sort of conjugating or translating a sentence, I wanted to look at how masculine, feminine, and neuter are conjugated, I guess we could say, or changed or whatever in Romanian, because it's done a little bit differently from other Romance languages. And so as we can see here, I've given an example, two examples of masculine singular, masculine plural, feminine singular, feminine plural, neuter singular, and neuter plural. So when we have a noun, this is how we use them. So the first one in masculine singular, this word bărbat is the word for man. So un bărbat means a man. But what's very interesting is that Romanian does not have a separate article for the word the. And so un bărbat, that is what we call the definite, the definite or indefinite article, pardon me. The indefinite article is just it's indefinite, it's just a man. But when we have what would be the word then becomes bărbatul. So the ending then, the tool, ul, is attached to the end. And if you looked at my or saw my Hungarian presentation, although it's not what we do in Hungarian, I think it could have some influence from Hungarian or from another language, like possibly Dacian or Albanian or something, probably another language that doesn't have a separate the article. Also, Slavic languages don't have articles. They don't have a, an, or the. So who knows what this influence is. But again, if we want to say a man, it's un bărbat. The man is bărbatul. If we go to plural, rules apply, it's the same one. So the word for two men is doi bărbați. And it's kind of strange because you see an I at the end, but the I is actually, when there's only one, is unstressed. And that T with the comma is pronounced ță. So it becomes doi bărbați, kind of like this, or bărbați, bărbațe. Some people leave it silent, some people unstress it. However, the men is bărbații. So when we have two I's at the end of the word, we actually say E, you say it. Then we get into feminine singular. This is the word for girl. So a girl is pronounced o fată. The girl is fata. Two girls is doua, which is the feminine version of two. So doua fete. And again, the girls is fetele. And we can see it's just add an LE at the end, and we do not have an article. Now, when it comes to the neuter nouns, in singular, we follow the same rules as masculine, but in plural, we follow the same rules as feminine. So there really isn't, like, there are neuter nouns, but the rules of them overlap. So it's really not exactly the same as like German or anything where there's a clear distinction. because there's overlapping, we could really say there's only 2, but on paper there's 3. So the final one here is just to use the word hotel. So a hotel, we're going to use the masculine. We're going to say un hotel, and then the hotel becomes hotelul. In plural, we have different rules, because of some nouns will end in a vowel, but if they end in a consonant, we will say doua hotel ur. And again, that I is not really stressed, so it can become either hotel ur or hotel ure, something like this. And then finally, the hotels is hotel uride. So again, we add the LE. And so that's just to me kind of interesting, kind of an interesting fact. Again, if anyone here speaks a Romance language, you can let me know. I think other Romance languages, as I said, do have an article for the. So I don't really know exactly how or why Romanian adapted this non-article attaching them at the end type thing, but I think it's a very unique and very interesting part of the Romanian language, and this is kind of why I enjoy it. So my final words just be, you can kind of see this evolution. You have a group of people called the Dacians. They're conquered by the Romanians, or by the Romans, pardon me, and they kind of build a community together. And then all these other people come in and out, mainly from the East. And so often Romanian is called the forgotten Romance language because many people don't know that it is a Romance language. And if they do, they will hear Slavic influences, Turkish influences, Hungarian, Greek, and so forth, and that's obviously different from the Western sort of Romance languages. So that's all I have. I hope everyone found that interesting. Again, it is a very unique and different, interesting language for a Romance language. So yeah, hope everyone enjoyed it, and thank you so much for your attention. Thank you very much.
That was great, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, thank
It's very
you.
interesting.
Yeah, it was. It really was.
Just that thing about O being feminine is, as put in the comments, is really confusing if your brain is switching between Romanian and Portuguese.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because in Portuguese, O is the same thing but masculine.
Oh, wow.
So yeah. And this. So during the times of the Moldovan SSR, when it was part of the Soviet Union, they switched back from Latin to Cyrillic alphabet under the influence of the Soviet government at the time. And eventually they ended up switching back. But yeah, so there's a short period there as well of them also using Cyrillic, and a lot of the older buildings still have like Cyrillic Romanian stuff in Moldova. So, and even more so in Transnistria, I'm sure. So
yeah, it'd be interesting. So in Portuguese, O is masculine. What's feminine?
Ah.
Oh, so O and A. Okay, that's cool.
Oh, no.
And then I forget what is in French. Le lait, I think is how we say it. Le lait. I know in Spanish it's L, and
El and la.
feminine is and la. And I think it's similar, if not the same, in Italian. If I'm right, or not L. Maybe it's, forget what Italian is now. Anyway,
I don't know
I
Italian.
think, yeah.
Levin Smith wants to know how you say French dip in French.
I say what?
He wants to know how you say French dip because that's his favorite food.
La dip de France. I don't know. What the heck do I know?
All right. They'll have to work. We'll
French dip. I don't think it actually comes from France, though. I think it's a purely American thing. Yeah.
Kind of like French fries. Or do they?
Good example.
From Belgium, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But no, I think I find that, again, I find it fascinating. So, we talk about German, der, die, das, and it's so hard to figure out because the rule that I learned was like, okay, it's masculine maybe if it ends in a consonant, but then there's 300 different exceptions. Then they say, okay, it ends in a vowel, maybe it's feminine, but then there's hundreds of different, exceptions. Then if it's a foreign word or a loan word or a new word, okay, it could be neutral. And then there's all these different exceptions. What's really interesting about Romanian, if it ends in a consonant, it's either going to be masculine or neutral. If it ends in certain vowels, it's probably masculine or neutral. But if it usually ends with an A or an then it's like feminine. So there's much more logic, and that also is similar to Italian, although Italian is simpler. If it ends in an O, it's masculine. It ends in an A, it's feminine, and that's pretty much what it is all the time. It ends in an I, it's plural. I can't remember when it ends in an E now. That might be either masculine or feminine. But basically, there's languages where it ends in a certain letter, then that's the case. But that's always drove me nuts about German. There's just no logic behind any of that. But it's really not that difficult. The other thing is, like, I hardly even know what between a masculine and a neuter nouns. Like, it really doesn't even matter, because it doesn't need like that extra German where you're just I was going through books and books and books of German vocabulary to figure out, okay, these nouns or this and whatever. Whereas, like, again, in Romanian, it's not as hard,
I guess counterpoint or perhaps Kontrapunkt. I find German grammar easier than Romanian, but it might just be because I've
Really?
had more
Okay.
practice at it. So
Yeah. I mean, I again, I think what I also find difficult with German is because the prepositions change, like der, die, das will change in all the different cases, where that doesn't happen in Romanian. However, Romanian, again, the tricky part are all those reflective pronouns, because there's a lot of them, and it depends on the case. And mă duc is that funny one. It could be se duc and all this kind of stuff. It's just, it's kind of bizarre. But I don't know. Again, it all depends on what you're used to. And again, if you do speak some kind of, anyone out there speaks a Romance language, would be nice to figure out, because I think for the most part, like, I have friends here in Hungary who their families are Hungarian, but they're from South America. So of course some people speak Brazilian Portuguese, but many people will speak Spanish. And if I sort of talk to them a little bit about Romanian, just the basics of Romanian, they get some of it. I mean, obviously Spanish is because they're so on different ends of Europe. It's a bit less common to find some commonality, but there's still something going on. They still recognize it as a language that has a Latin root, even though they might not understand a lot of it. But then there are words that they do understand almost 100% or something. So again, it's really weird. It's really kind of bizarre, but it's just, it's just different, just nice, kind of interesting. So I certainly enjoy
definitely. If you already speak a Romance language, you've got a head start in Romanian.
it.
So.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And one thing I forgot to mention too was in vocabulary, because of course during the nationalist movement there was quite a lot of people that wanted to rid a lot of the loan words, particularly Slavic and Turkish loan words, from Romanian, and they replaced them with either French or Italian loan words. But that didn't happen to every loan word. So I believe somewhere between 80 to 85% of modern Romanian vocabulary is based in Latin, but then the remaining 15 to 20% is still, again, Hungarian, Turkish, German, and Greek, I think, are the main three. Another thing, too, is if you do speak German, you'll know that the word for street is Straße, whereas in Romanian it's Strada, and that comes from German. So you will find some German words, not always, but you will find some. In Romanian, we have a couple crossovers with Hungarian. I don't know if these roots are Latin. That could be why, or whatever. I think they are. But in Hungarian, for the word for lamp is pronounced lampa, but in Romanian it's pronounced lampa. It's pretty much the same. And then the word for pillow in Hungarian is pronounced barna, whereas in Romanian, I believe it's pronounced Perna or Perna or Parna. I can't remember what that first word is. It's an E or an A, but it's either Perna or Parna. So again, they probably come from Latin. So learning Hungarian, there's a lot of like common household stuff that cross over with with Latin, I guess. So it's kind of interesting there because we do have some Latin. We do have Latin influence in Hungarian, being, of course, the fact that many Hungarians spoke Latin until I guess like the 18th century, maybe 19th century, and then of course we're a Roman Catholic country here, so that has a huge influence as well. But yeah, again, if you sort of can think of Latin mixed with Slavic, that's kind of what it is. And I know people think that's weird, but that's kind of what it is.
Yeah,
Excellent.
accurate.
Yeah. I said that to someone once and they were like, that sounds strange, right? Like the flowingness of a Latin mixed with the very harshness of Slavic, but it works.
Well, I kind of think of it and have described it as like the way English is a mix between Germanic and Romance. It's the same, right? It's a mix between Romance and Slavic.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly the
Definitely,
same
yeah,
sort of thing.
definitely fusion, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The Germanic influence, the German influence you're talking about, do you think that comes from the time when the Austro-Hungarian Empire was there? Because, there was lots of German speakers who might have migrated into particularly Transylvania. And
That's right.
there was, yeah.
Yeah, so back in the Middle Ages
Yeah.
and medieval era, there were the group called the Transylvanian Saxons, and these were people that traveled from Luxembourg and the areas of Germany around Luxembourg called Saarbrücken and parts of like Baden-Württemberg, but basically a very specific dialect over there. I think it's called like Mosel German or something like that. It's a weird one. It's very special. So they went from that particular area, or the Pfalz, Rhineland-Pfalz, Saarbrücken, and all that area, and Luxembourg. So they went over and they got certain communities, and one of the largest communities was called Sibiu, which of course in Hungarian we call Nagyszeben, and I forget what they call it in German. I should know that one. But yeah, that it comes from their German. So like again, Strasse and Strada, that might be from like more of a modern thing because of course Strasse would have been what the modern German would have spoken. But they're definitely like, I don't know what that dialect would be. It's a High German. I think it's called Moseldeutsch, if I'm not mistaken, or Luxembourgish. So there are some influences now. Maybe throughout history, some of those words have been purged in favor of Italian and French words, but certainly, yeah, there is a high German or standard German influence. And then you make a good point with Transylvania being, mostly what people would speak the Austrian version of German in there, the Viennese German, and certainly there's overlap as well. So it's hard to say, I guess, for me specifically, but certainly Austria and the Transylvanian Saxons put a lot of Germanic influence into Romanian, which again is very, very interesting too. It's one of those things. I know Northern Italian has Germanic influences, but beyond that, French has some obviously Germanic influences. But yeah.
Wow.
So the word in Italian for street is also strada. So I'm
Oh,
wondering
okay.
if that
All
might
right.
have a Latin root.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea. I forgot. I guess I forgot that. I didn't know that. That's really cool. So strada. Yeah, it could have been. It could be. Maybe it's a coincidence, or maybe the German word has the Latin root. But yeah, that's cool. Okay, I thought it was a Germanic thing, but maybe they all kind of share a common etymology. It's possible.
I really find it quite interesting how it has the suffix, the ul, because there's only one other. So I haven't learnt any Slavic languages, so it's probably somewhere I'm missing, right, in the piece of the puzzle here. But the only other language I've ever learnt which has a the suffix is Norwegian, in which is et, et. So it's quite unusual from the ones I've learned. I think it's quite an interesting feature.
Yeah, one of my professors, and I'm taking a Romanian history course, he has he's noted that there is probably some crossover in grammar between Romanian and Albanian. And that's why I'd like to figure out if Albanian, maybe they don't have articles, because there are Indo-European languages that don't. You mentioned Norwegian. Obviously they do the same thing, but I'm wondering, like, I really wonder where that comes from. So it could be possible that it is that way, or maybe Hungarians, because Hungarians, agglutinate, but it's not really agglutinative, but it kind of looks like it. So it's really bizarre. I don't know where that comes from, but I do know that there's some things there, and I know what's interesting too is if you took the ending ul and you just put it in front of barbat and you just said ul barbat, then it's more like Italian, or it's more like French, more like another Romance language. Or if you said like
Or
le
Spanish.
feta, yeah, exactly, or le feta, that would be more like more like Spanish or whatever. But I guess someone just said, okay, let's put it, behind for whatever reason. I mean, who knows? But yeah, and again, the Slavic languages have no articles at all, so there's no and or the. So, like in Russian, dom is home, and that's what it is, and it's dom, and it's kind of like, doesn't matter if it's a house or the house, it's dom. So it's like, it's weird for us, of course. It sounds so weird, but yeah, who knows? I haven't gotten to that level yet, but I would really love to figure out that, because it is a very unique feature in a Romance language.
Excellent.
Did we have any questions or anything, guys?
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, now's a good time.
Or comments too is cool. But as I said, I always like the idea of these kind of languages that are familiar, but they have some different influences. And yeah, that's really what Romanian feels like. A lot of it, from learning French, from learning Spanish, from learning Italian, so much of it, and even English, a lot of it is familiar. And then every once in a while, there's a curveball that'll be thrown with the reflective pronouns or the no thes or the, or whatever it is. And it's like kind of cool. Again, it's how people make their own expressions of identity, whatever. They make them unique from their neighbors, and they make them unique from people who are even similar to them. And a lot of languages, although they evolve naturally, at least in the beginning stages, especially in Europe, in the middle of the 19th century, in order to make their own nationality unique. And this for sure happened in Hungarian. This is why it's so hard, was to sort of keep Hungarian more difficult, because it was kind of like to isolate us and to make us more special and to make it harder for outsiders. But Romanian, they wanted to be more like Western Europe. So they took a lot of French again and Italian words and brought it in. However, they also had their Slavic stuff, and so that makes them very much unique. So yeah.
Wow.
So Clearwater Claire, the Taylor, says, question, I missed the start of the stream, so sorry if you've already answered this, considering Britain didn't have a spoken language before the Romans came.
And then there's a part 2.
Mm-hmm. Part 2, what did the rest of Europe do for languages, pictorial or sound? Well, I don't know do you know, Joe? I don't really know too much about that.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm very much an amateur linguist, but so could we put part 1 back on?
Sure.
Just address that. So Britain didn't have a spoken language before the Romans came. I would argue it did, because they spoke Celtic Brythonic languages, which, there's still Welsh and Cornish and Irish and Manx and Scottish Gaelic and all these languages which are descendants of that. So yeah, before the Romans came, British people were speaking Celtic Brythonic languages. But I'm wondering if you mean in terms of an alphabet, because certainly the Latin alphabet was introduced, and you were talking about the Cyrillic and Latin alphabets which were used for Romanian. So yeah, that would perhaps make more sense in terms of what you're saying with part 2, Chad, part 2.
Okay. I'm going to put you on administration next time, just so you know, because I got an extra slot, so we could get you.
It is cool. It's cool. So yeah, given pictorial, I'm wondering if this is an alphabet question. So the Vikings had runes. So runes were kind of an alphabet which was designed to be carved into wood, as opposed to the Latin alphabet is more designed to be carved into stone. So it has like different shape, but that was definitely a thing. Not according to the podcast. Okay. Well, like I say, I'm an amateur linguist, so it would not surprise me if I was wrong, and I'm happy to admit if I was wrong. That's my understanding. I guess, yeah, to finish what I was saying, the other evidence of a written script which has been found in Scotland is the Ogham script, Ogham or Ogham, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, which is written on the corner of carved stones, and it's like a series of lines, and that is an alphabet. Not sure if it's an alphabet or an abegida, but it's some sort of writing system. No, more like how the African tribes would communicate.
I guess like clicks or sound. I guess that's what she means, like clicks or whatever, like rather than full-on sounds like that we produce. Is that what you mean, Claire? I'm not sure.
I mean, in terms of languages like Xhosa, I can't do it, but the one with the clicking, right? The South African language.
Xhosa.
That is a linguistic sound. That's not like instead of. So yeah, I'm not sure I understand the question, but please do clarify.
I do know just a brief thing. When the Romans went to Britannia, there were people there. They were Celtic peoples called the Britons. Okay. Then when the Anglo-Saxons and Jutes invaded, the rest of the Romans and the Britons got together to form a people they called the Romano-Britons. And there was one group of them that went to Brittany, to France. They got refuge and they became the Bretons, and they have their own unique culture. They have a very strong French accent, but it is a Celtic language. And then when the Germanic peoples, Anglo-Saxons, Jutes came in, they didn't really like get rid of all of the Britons. They absorbed a lot of them, and so Old English had some of the influences, and then of course William the Conqueror comes in, which places so much French, and then we get, go from there. This is why English is so kind of crazy, because it's not necessarily about one empire completely destroying and replacing the language. There's a lot of absorbing. So like there's so much stuff, and then you mentioned the Vikings came in, so then they added their language, and so much fusion in England, right? And in Great Britain.
Important thing about the Vikings as well, the influence of Old Norse on English is probably responsible for us dropping cases and grammatical gender.
Yes.
So thank you, Vikings. Tusen
yes.
tak.
They did horrible things, but that was a good one. Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
No, absolutely. I do. I find it so interesting. And Old English, which there are some scholars that speak, again, how clear their accent is anyone's guess. But I find it so interesting because it sounds like Low German, like Northern German, which of course it was. The Angles were from Schleswig-Holstein. The Saxons were from Lower Saxony, and the Jutes were from Jutland, so parts of Denmark. And they all had this, unique Low German dialects. and they came in, and yeah, these people were there, and they were like, hey, you know what? Let's just kind of, breed our languages together. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the English accents, one of the reasons why there's so many of them, goes back to whether or not it was the Angles, the Saxons, or the Jutes that actually came into those places. Because if I'm not mistaken, you can correct me on this one, the Kentish accent, I think, was developed from the Jutes. I think the Jutes went to Kent, if I'm not mistaken. Could be, anyway. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But again, it depended on where they come from. So the English, all these wonderful English accents that we get, even the ones I can't understand, like the Geordie, are influenced by whether it's Anglo-Saxons or Jutes, and it's like a representation of the fact that even the Angles, the Saxons, and the Jutes didn't have a united language themselves until way later.
I don't know about where the Jutes particularly settled, but I do know that so the northeast area and kind of all the way down that coast was a lot of Viking settlement, and that was known as the Danelaw. This area, which was conquered by the Vikings, and you can also see clues of where the Saxons settled in the names of various counties of England, Sussex, Middlesex. This is Saxon, right? So, yeah. Oh, Essex as well as the other one, of course.
Just fascinating.
It is. It really is.
Yeah, English is such a weird language.
Yeah.
It really is. There's a person on YouTube who speaks. You're saying about speaking Old English. A couple of YouTubers. One is Simon Roper. If we get him on here, that'd be great. History with Hilbert is the other one.
Yeah, again, I find it like it's just so cool. Like, I don't know. And I know another one that fascinates me too is because, again, growing up speaking French, there were the Gauls. The Gauls were replaced by the Romans, and the Romans were replaced by the Franks. And then how the French language evolves is really cool, because then there was a language called Gallo-Romance, which is a mix of Gallic Celtic and Latin speakers. Then the Franks come in, and their closest living relative is Dutch, because they come from what's called a Francovian dialect, and one of them, it was Dutch. And so that's really what French is. French was the fact that the Germanic was kind of dying out, and around Paris and northern France, there were these Gallic Romance speakers, and they started to take over after the Franks split up and all that. But there's still a lot of Germanic influence in French. And then I watched the video, because to me, what I hate about French and English is our alphabets, how like no one can spell. It's just awful. And how in French, like it's just terrible. Like, we have 7 vowels together, and it's like bow, like B-E-A-U. It's like so awful. Just put an O, I'm a phonetic person, right? And why that happened. And there's videos online that like, okay, well, back in Old French, things were pronounced, and then eventually you get all these drops and all these drops, and then all these nasal stops, which actually come from the Celtic influences. And it's like so fascinating. So when I watch this video, I'm like, okay, now I understand why French sounds like this, and why it's kind of hard, and why it's very precise. And it's because of years of people just dropping certain things and then picking up other things, and then the spelling doesn't change, which is what's happened in English. It's an archaic version, 26 letters, no accents, no circumflexes, no inscriptions, no commas, no nothing. It's crazy. It's anyone's guess half the time of what I have so many problems spelling even today, But again, every language has something that's really, really hard and really, really easy. So in English, it's verb tenses and spelling, and nobody masters any of them. And in other languages, it's other things, right?
Speaking of spelling, I think we should bring back the thorn letter, like in Icelandic.
Which one's that one?
English really needs that. It's I don't know if I can type it in the chat.
Is it the AE together, or the?
No, it's the th sound. So in Icelandic, they have a th and a the. So 2 letters.
Okay.
One's called thorn and one's called eth, I think. And yeah, I mean, with English, with it's the sound, and like we use th so much, we really should have kept that letter. I think it was the printing press that killed it off, but yeah, we should have kept it.
And the only exists in 4 languages: English, Castilian, Spanish, Albanian, and Greek. That's it.
Yep.
And our soft
Oh, there's an Arabic
really
have it as well.
Oh, do they? Okay, I didn't know that. Really?
I think so. I'm not sure if it's. I think it's the soft one, but they have.
Oh, well, that's really cool because, like, also our soft R is a tough one. We don't say r, we don't roll, we say r, r, which is weird, and th is tough, and it's almost like the in in Romanian, or the j in Hungarian. Like, again, everything has kind of a tricky little sound. I'm just also thankful that I can make the sounds, in some of these languages, because there are languages like, Zosha or whatever, like, talk about that language, its clickings and all this would be very, very hard to learn those things. Yeah, the clicks and clucks and whatever. Ooh. But, it could be worse, I guess.
You were saying... Sorry, go on.
Oh, I said I never knew that about the languages where some people just click and stuff, the tribes and stuff.
It's really cool. Yeah, National Geographic has always done that. They have quite a lot of stuff. But if you go on the internet and you just do Xhosa, spelled Xhosa. So if you put Xhosa language, you can hear people speak fascinating stuff.
Wow. Okay.
There, I've put it in the chat if you want to put it on screen.
Oh, sure.
There we go. That's the language.
Yeah. Wow.
It's a Bantu language.
We would say Xhosa. Yeah. We would just say Xhosa, but I think they click in a certain way. I don't know if it's a click or a click, like, or whatever it is, but it's a click and then Osha is how they say it.
The X is something.
It's a really cool thing.
That's a letter in itself.
Yeah, and then in the Canary Islands, they have a language of whistles. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of that one.
No.
Where people whistle, and it developed because of fishermen on the Canary Islands. They weren't able to yell, like yelling was whatever. So they started whistling, and so they put they do this whatever with their fingers, and they actually teach it in school. And they teach these loud whistles, and the whistles carry like all over this island. It's a one particular island in the Canaries, and it's just like made up kind of whistling language, and it depends on how much you aspirate and tones and all this kind of stuff. So that I find hard. I can barely whistle myself now, but to do it,
You were saying about terrible people that happen to do good things by accident.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
Ceausescu's language reforms have made, or spelling reforms, have made learning Romanian so much easier for me than, for instance, French spelling. So,
yeah.
But Ceausescu, terrible person.
Oh, horrible. Yeah, no, it is true. It is true. I mean, I have my problems with a lot of people throughout history. Tito's another one, but whatever, At the end of the day, if you can name one good thing that the person does, you probably can. Then it's whatever, it's nuanced. But Ceausescu, not a good guy, but you're right. The one thing, again, that makes Romanian, especially reading Romanian, is because, it is pretty phonetic. It's fairly phonetic. Again, they have these diphthongs and triphthongs that can be tricky, but it's like, doesn't really matter. It's not too bad.
Excellent. Hey, Julie. Julie's here.
Oh yeah, Julie's here. Toma este cu.
Come este cu. Cu placere.
Cu placere. Yeah, she loves cu.
Yeah,
cu placere. I mean, and cu is with. So when you say cu placere, it means with pleasure, right? I mean, that kind of makes sense. Cu with. I do love the fact that they have prepositions, and that the prepositions are really not bad. The sub, I think, is under. About, I think about is despre. Despre is about. De la is from. La is to. Pentru is for. Cu is with. It's not bad. You know what I mean? It's nice. It's like in Hungarian, I'm putting them all at the end of the word, and then I got to do this order at the end of this, and it's like drives me nuts half the time. And I forget them, and people are like reminding me. I'm like, I know it, but I forget it. But it's nice. Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Juliana, you're not too late if you do want to join, but I appreciate you probably just
Yeah,
got home.
come join on.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Cool is
so-
nice.
Absolutely.
Well,
Ku means something very different in Portuguese.
He's always on
Yes.
the ball, popping up the comments and stuff.
Yeah, come on, Juliana. Be nice, interesting. We can make some comparisons if you're ready to come on. Of course, no rush, no pressure, but if you can. But yeah, again,
Cinco minutos.
it's one of those. Yeah, it's one of those things. As I said, I like going over to Romania because I can now that I'm, A1, B2. I'm not fluent yet. I should be fluent probably by a year from now, maybe, or a little less. And it is a little difficult. You got to practice the language. But I will say, even when I don't practice the language too much, because it follows some similar logic to English, I can kind of improvise and kind of get away with stuff. Because again, I don't mind. For example, I know it can be tricky when people learn a Romance language, where if I'm saying like, if I'm introducing like a possessive pronoun, like my has to become masculine or feminine, which is in Romanian is either meu or mea, and so that might be a little weird but again, it's not really that. It's not bad. It goes at the end. It's like an adjective goes at so, I could say something like, I don't know, like, okay, so my program would be programul meu, or I want to say my mother, I might say mama mia, right? So it's noun first, possessive pronoun second. But again, these are not like horrible, terrible things that are so hard that no one can do them. It does depend on the language that you speak at first. And so I don't know, maybe because I learned French in school, and there's some similar logic there. If somebody speaks, learns Spanish in school, but I don't find it as difficult, and I find it really nice, really kind of cool. So, well, no, it's not terribly difficult.
Excellent.
Yeah. Actually, what I wanted to do, if this is okay, I have the book Micul Prince, The Little Prince, which I love, and I wanted to read, if I could, the first page of Micul Prince. Now, remember, I don't speak Romanian as my first language, but I'm going to read the first page, and I think it'll be kind of cool to get a flavor. I'm sorry, Joe?
I'll just be back in a second. I'm going to get a book as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay,
Sounds
no
good,
worries.
man.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds
We'll
good.
give her a second. So yeah,
Yeah.
I really like this book, and if you do speak and want to learn another language, like a foreign language, once you get up to like the A2 level, this book is really good, and of course it's translated over. It's from a French author, so it's originally written in French. I have it in Hungarian, I have it in Romanian, and of course have it in English at home. But I really like it because, again, it's not terribly difficult if you want to learn another one. I can imagine the German version's not that hard. But yeah, it's really, really cool. And I have a bunch of kids' books, and maybe we'll do some reading just to compare. But when I read Romanian, and I'm sorry here, I'm just looking over for another book, which is actually a very cute children's book, and I don't know where it is, but I'll find it. You're mainly noticing like just the sounds. So I'll go from the first page. So I'll read just a couple paragraphs, and we can compare again. So, okay, so the first page on The Little Prince, Micul, The Little Prince. Okay. Capitolul 1. Pe când aveam 6 ani, am văzut odată într-o carte despre pădurea Virginia, care se numea Istorii trăită. O imagine minunată. Reprezenta un șarpe boa care înghițea un animal sălbatic. Iată aici o copie a denesului. În carte se spunea așa, șerpiboa își înghit prada întreaga fără s-o metece. După aceea nu mai pot să se miște și dorm timp de 6 luni cât durează digestia. M-am gândit atunci multă vreme la aventurile din junglă și am izbutit și eu cu un creion colorat să fac primul meu desen. Desenul meu numărul 1. So there you go.
Numero
Right.
uno.
Oh, Juliana.
Hey, Julie.
Hey, Juliana. You just missed me reading Romanian.
No,
Oi,
I was listening. I was waiting for you to finish.
bună seara.
Boa noite.
I say
Boa
bonus there.
tarde. I don't know. Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, coming
Yeah,
along.
can hear you
yeah.
fine.
Hi, everybody. Sorry about today.
Oh, good.
No problem.
It's all right. Chet had to do more work, though, but other than that, it's okay.
I'm sorry, Chad.
Or Chad.
Yeah,
Chad.
and we had a Griff, Pete, and Fake Ron discussion earlier that was knocked my socks off, and I
gotta
have to
catch
say
up.
Griff and Marty were in hilarious. It was absolutely hilarious.
You were
Yeah,
too,
that's
Pete.
like the replay. Hey, Claire. Good to see you.
Can I speak? Can I finish?
Can I
Mark, when you said about your book, this reminded me. I still have this. This is the one I was learning with.
Oh, nice. Okay.
This very
yourself
dated
Romanian.
and very falling apart book is is
That's
the
all
one.
good. I wanted to see if I can find another book here. I apologize if I'm kind of looking all around. So my books are literally right in front of me. But I just read like from The Little Prince, but there's an easier book that I have here somewhere. Just give me one moment. I'm gonna want to find it and see if I can freaking find it here. Oh God, where is it? Apologies here, but
So
yeah,
just
it's just
something
because
that,
I'm sorry. Go on, Joe. I'm very sorry. Go ahead.
I just wanted to share something with Juliana that I think will blow her mind.
Oh.
So O is feminine.
Oh?
Oh,
In Romanian?
yep.
Yeah, O is feminine, and then un is masculine.
That's just wrong.
Not if you're Romanian.
Yeah, I guess. Hang on, let me just try to see if this is better. I didn't have time because I wasn't expecting, like, I didn't come home in time for the stream. I didn't have my nice camera. Yeah, I didn't have my nice camera ready, so I'm just using that.
I got it. This is a little mystery book. So, Mikul Prince, this is a little tiny mystery book. I love these books. And it's called Furtur în Texas. And it's a mystery of like a Miss Marple character who's actually a duck. And the best part about it is the author's name is Robert Quackenbush. I think that's the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life. But
That's cool.
I read the first page of thing. I'll just read again the first paragraph. And this is like because now that Juliana's on, I would love to hear your response if you recognize anything or if yeah, maybe you probably, I don't know, but anyway. So this is from chapter 1. So this is Rătăcită în prerirea celebra rață detectiv de renume mondial era în vacanță la o fermă turistică din statul Texas. Într-o după-amiază târziu, ea a ieșit să facă o plimbare cu calcul.
My internet went off. I didn't hear any of it.
Oh, did it? It went off? Oh, jeez. Stupid
I'm sorry.
internet. It's
I know.
Chad, I swear to God.
It was doing
It
so
is
good
Chad.
too.
It's Griff.
Yep.
He's hacking into my
Yep.
into my computer.
You guys don't want
He's
Griff to
causing
come
it.
out.
Last time I blamed the Protestants. This time I blame Chad. I'm up in
Don't blame
arms.
Chad. Blame Griff. Blame
Yeah.
Griff. Blame Mark. Don't blame Chad.
These guys wouldn't let Griff finish the last stream. Kept interrupting him.
I know.
But nobody cares about Griff. I mean,
So
you
completely
know Chad's
went
my
out.
favorite. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's Romanian. Romanian's
Curious.
weird. I'm sure
Do you
compared
mind
to
reading it again?
Portuguese, it's weird. Yeah, of course. Hopefully, it doesn't. Hopefully, Chad won't flub my internet this time. But
Right?
so this is just a very short. Yeah. So it's rătăcită în preria celebrată detectiv de renume mondial era în vacanță la o fermă turistică din statul Texas. Într-o după-amiază târziu, ea a ieșit să facă o plimbare cu calcul.
No.
Yeah, it's a little weird. And also, my accent is not perfect, but
I some words in the middle, I was trying to make sense of it and come up with like a silly version, like I did with the autumn thing. But just listening, it's too much for me to try to, maybe if I had it written.
It was
What
nice,
is
though.
that?
Huh?
What were you pointing up to?
Oh, just because you said autumn, that's all.
Oh, okay.
toamnă.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably reading text is probably a bit better. Probably figure it out. But yeah. Anyway, we had a good stream.
Something sounded familiar, but I'm not sure if. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm glad you guys had a good stream. I'm sorry I couldn't be here.
No worries. I think again, Portuguese and Romanian being on the opposite sides of Europe, you probably find some overlap, but it would be probably the most different. Like Romanian is probably the most different to Portuguese, and especially to Brazilian Portuguese, because that's a whole different thing, right? So,
Yeah,
but still,
probably.
yeah.
I heard something.
cool.
I read something cool the other day. Something funny that somebody said something like Brazilian Portuguese is, or not. I don't know if Brazilian. I think Brazilian Portuguese is Spanish with a French accent or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I met. I was on a group tour today with a bunch of students, and yeah, a lot of Brazilians, which is a good thing, by the way, because Brazilians are known to dance randomly in the streets, as we've all proven. But
Yep.
no, it was really cool.
Yeah,
It's
more
actually
to
really,
go.
really fun.
I had done that here today, just so you know. I was dancing randomly in the street.
Yep, verified facts.
One friend showed me. One friend was showing me that today it was 27 degrees in Sao Paulo. So
27
yeah.
what in São Paulo?
27 degrees in Sao Paulo today. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I bet. It's hot. It's hot. It's 28 here right now.
Well, it's summer, right? So
It's getting there. Yeah, that's
Getting to
76
summer, yeah.
Fahrenheit, according to my cell phone. I don't know if it's exactly.
Ugh.
Jenny.
That blows my mind that there's different, how it's winter here and it's summer there.
27 is hot.
Yeah.
No, it's a hot day today. Hot day.
Yeah, not Fahrenheit, Celsius. Yeah.
27
it's hot.
Celsius. Mhm.
Whew, yeah. 27 Fahrenheit is
can I-
nothing for a Canadian, but yeah.
Yeah.
So can I finish off with a joke?
Sure.
Sure, of course.
Sure.
Yeah. So this is one of, if not the most ancient joke that's ever been recorded. It's an ancient Sumerian joke, and it's from 1800 BCE. The joke goes as follows: a dog walked into a tavern, or maybe a brothel, depending on translation, and he said, "I can't see a thing. I'll open this one."
Okay. No, I need a minute.
I don't think I get it.
I don't think I get it either.
I don't get it. I'm thinking of
Me
a
neither.
cat.
Oh, so it's
Oh.
like a riddle. Okay.
It's like
So
so
I'm not an
old.
idiot.
It's a big.
Yeah, I think we've lost the meaning because it's so old, but it's meant to be
Yeah.
a joke. So
That's interesting. So it doesn't even make sense anymore.
Well, I know someone,
That's
Pete
funny.
Panzerotti, who was in a time travel business with some guy named Griff Calzone. And if that works out, we will go back to ancient Samaria and we will figure it out.
Ooh, good. Well, hang
That
on.
sounds good. That sounds good. We got to do that.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh. Well, I appreciate it.
Carry
Yeah,
on.
Romanian is a little weird, but you know.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's
Liana
cool.
channeling her Visigoth.
Yeah. I prefer the Osters,
Get
but
in,
whatever.
get in, loser. Let's go and sack the Roman Empire.
Woohoo! That reminds me of the. What's her name? Your character at the Halloween.
Oh, Hildegard von Bingen.
Yeah. That
Sorry,
one.
I mean, I don't know who you're talking about.
Yeah, who was it?
Yeah,
when she was saying we were saying things like, "Oh, where can people write to?" And then you're like, "Oh, it's whatever the name of the church was, the what did you say, the Sacred Roman Empire," something like that.
Holy Roman Empire. Yeah.
Mhm.
That's hilarious.
It's
Neither
just-
holy nor Roman
it's
nor an
just-
empire.
Holy Roman
Yeah.
Empire.
It's a Voltaire
It's
quote.
just funny to think that you're saying that you're living in this place that she doesn't think exists, and you're talking to her through this mysterious box, and then you're telling her that she's crazy. But there we are.
Oh,
was-
yeah, that was fun,
True,
that one
that
stream.
it was.
That was a great show.
Yeah.
That was. That,
You know,
that truly.
So speaking of the Roman Empire, somebody posed this question to me, like not long ago, and I it was surprising. I don't. So the question was, how often do you think about the Roman Empire? For me, it's a lot.
Okay.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, how often do you
'Cause you
think about the Roman Empire? Like, how often in your day or in your month or whatever? How often do you think about the Roman
You
Empire?
think about it a
For
lot
me-
because you study history.
Not just because of that, but because there's so many comparisons to the fall of the Roman Empire with like modern history, right? Like, you know, it's like the biggest empire in the world, and then all of a sudden some German guys come in and, you know, sack it, and then it just kind of shrinks.
Huh.
And it's like, it's just interesting, like that question of like, how often do you think of the Roman Empire? A lot of people think of the Roman Empire a lot.
That
know
would
what I
be
mean?
a good
More
stream.
than, yeah, like more, and probably more than most other empires. Am I wrong? I'm wrong, I guess. I
No,
don't
you're
know.
right. You're right. You're right.
Thank you, Chad. I appreciate the validation.
I mean, I've never really thought about the Roman Empire on a daily basis like you, but now maybe I will.
There you go.
daily basis.
What have the
you
Romans
know.
ever done for us?
I used to think of the Roman Empire on a daily basis when I read Asterix.
Yeah, Asterix is
I
great.
have
I love
One,
Asterix.
one
I love
question.
novels,
I have one question, guys.
Yeah. I'm just saying, go home with
on.
that. That could be it. How often do you think of the Roman Empire? I will expect a 1,000 word essay on it next
No,
week.
yeah.
I will
We
be
should-
grading
yeah,
them on an
Answers
A
on
to
a
F scale. Yeah.
We should do a stream on about the significance of how they got their power and lost it.
Yes, going around on TikTok.
Possibly.
Okay, thank you, Claire. Yeah. I don't know.
But
It's
apart from
surprising,
straight
isn't it?
roads, what did the Romans ever do for us?
I don't know what it is.
Sorry, that's a Monty Python
I have
reference.
a sudden urge to watch Spartacus now for some reason.
Yeah, they did that. They were the first ones that had the stadiums, right, where they did all that stuff.
Mhm.
And they
Two
had
gladiators, man.
Yep, they invented like not necessarily like toilets, but they invented like the streams where the water goes, and yeah. So that's very good. I mean,
See,
it's not as
men
significant
in the
as,
Roman Empire.
not
You
as good as
see?
they're not.
There's
Can I
something
finish?
about men
Can I
in the
talk?
Roman
Can
Empire.
I finish? Can I talk? Can I finish? Can I talk?
Yes, you can. I'm sorry.
That's okay. For anyone that watched our last stream 2 hours ago, will get that reference.
These guys have been going on for 4 hours, 5 hours. I'm not even sure who they are anymore.
We're in our 10th hour. We're in our 10th
Not
hour, and
me.
I'm only getting now to the Roman Empire, so it'll be another 14 hours after this.
Now I'm going to be dreaming about the friggin' Roman Empire all night.
I'm gonna be dreaming about this joke here that I don't get.
That's going to haunt
It's
me for a very long time.
Either in a bar or a brothel, and he can't see a thing. He'll open this one. He'll open up another door. He'll open
We don't know.
another. What will he open? They have been, Claire. They have been on for a long time because I think Riff Calzone and Pete Panzerati were on before the Nerdy Bunch. So not these guys, but they're. Well,
I don't know. I don't know who this Pete guy is. I have no clue.
This guy.
And they wouldn't let Griff and Marty finish their sentences, so it was a major operational problem. So everyone should watch that stream too.
Kim, you and I both. I'm gonna have to watch replay for both those shows because I missed my own show today.
Okay, it's all good.
I've been slacking.
You know, I'm back to work, so I won't be available as much. Just every other Saturday and stuff.
They drop their cases quicker than Old Norse.
Yeah.
Yeah, screw cases. I was just going to say that right there. 18 of them in Hungarian. That's just, it's torture.
Oh, I'm like, what cases? Scientology cases? Like, no case opposed? I'm like, okay, no, the language case.
No case gain.
Different cases, no case gain.
Oh, no, but legal cases, these two.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it's still on.
There's a lot of cases going on. I'm just saying, my sunglasses aren't on, so I'm not going to do my accent, but, Chad knows what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
The sunglasses go on, the whole thing comes in, I do my method, I got to think back, Yeah.
Mark, don't worry about it. I'm on the case.
There you go.
Nice.
Yeah. I start to remember all of the wonderful Chicago actors that I take inspiration from. The van driver in Home Alone, Dennis Franz in Die Hard 2. I don't know. I could go on, but what's the point,
Hey, the strike is over, so we're going to have more actors and more things coming out soon.
Yeah.
That's good.
We should do, I think for Christmas, we should do a watch-along of Die Hard 2. I think that would be fun, because...
I don't think we can do it on stream. That'd be cool, but I don't think we can do it.
Copyright strike in 3, 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's just Dennis Franz. I need to embody.
We could definitely have a watch party on Discord. It just wouldn't be streamed.
Okay.
We could.
I would do that.
Get a bunch of people who wanted to do it. I don't know how to do it, but Michelle does, and she's, the creator of the.
Yeah, I just think the world needs to understand where my character's coming from, and if we watch Die Hard 2, it's like a Stanislavski method lesson. I would give all the actors in the world some inspiration. I think I'm giving back, to the world. I'm a very humble person. I just want to say that about myself. Very humble, right?
Yeah, it's very
people everywhere tell me all the time how humble I am for giving back. I love those. Cool. I love ironic humor. Anywho.
Claire says you can do it where everyone watches on their own stream and your reactions. Yeah, but I think we'd all be copyright stricken.
Yeah.
But we should definitely get together and doing something at a Discord or something. Maybe that'd be fun.
I think that'd be cool. I'd love to do that. Yeah, that'd be fun. Super humble. I can tell. 10x. No. 20.
20x.
Yeah. See, you guys copy
this bum. This bum does the 10. I don't know where my.
Can I finish? Can I talk? Can I finish? Can I talk? Can we have an unnatural event and not interrupt me? Can I talk? Can I talk? Can I finish? Can I talk?
Why can't I point today? There we go. This bum. What's going on with my? You know what? Chad is a bum. Thank you.
Guys,
I
don't
have
let me
like
finish.
spatial issues here. What am I doing?
I see
Spatial
what Claire
issues. There we
means.
go. What the?
There you go.
Yeah,
What a-
there we
there-
go. What a
there you
bum.
go.
Griff will get you guys back.
Kim says that she'll have a midnight private party at her local movie theater next month. That sounds fun.
Wow. Rocky
That's so
Horror
fun.
Picture Show. Yeah, Rocky Horror is good.
I get Claire's idea here. Not if you do not stream the show. So I think the idea is that I get it. So stream the reactions. I get it.
Yeah.
So we would
Yeah.
like maybe watch the movie on Discord and stream not the movie, but stream each of our channels. Or maybe we could do it together because Mark's still at that. But we could all
The other,
we could be streaming
I
our
just have
reactions.
so many powerful anecdotes about Dennis France's accent. I think the world needs to hear it. I'm just, I don't know why, Maybe it's my Scientology ego still in my head, the narcissism of being a Scientologist. But I just think the world needs to understand. That's all. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's,
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Kim. I was going to say the other solution is to find a film from a country which basically the United States doesn't give a shit about, and therefore won't copyright strike. So I've streamed things from Iran on my channel because I'm learning Farsi, and that's helped with that. And they never get copyright striked. If you stream a film from Cuba, you'd probably be okay as well.
But then we don't get the Pete Panzerati inspiration, which is the point.
I guess at least you might get a Christmas film from Cuba. You probably wouldn't get one from Iran. I don't know. Yeah.
Christmas.
That's an idea.
Yeah.
Also, if it's a terrible film, it's even better.
Yeah.
Right? That's
True.
the whole point.
I wish I could find one of those with a guy that fits Mark's inspiration for his character. That'd be funny.
Yeah.
And they
Wouldn't
watch
be anyone as nice.
Who also talks about the Roman Empire a lot, because I think about them a lot,
So a Cuban movie with a Chicago Italian
the Chicago
guy,
accent who's talking about the Roman
Chicago
Empire.
accent
We could do it.
with a fake Chicago accent. Actually,
Hey.
not yours,
Okay.
not yours, not yours, not yours.
I've been
The actor.
practicing.
No, I'm saying
Artificial.
like a Cuban actor. I'm saying like a Cuban
Artificial.
actor, artificial. But I'm saying like a Cuban actor artificializing in a Chicago American accent, talking about the Roman Empire in a Christmas movie in Havana.
It'll be good. It won't be as good as
that's easy.
Ross Perot, but
Oh, I have an anecdote about Claire's question or Claire's comment. Voiceover accents. So, basically, different accents in different languages tend to have different connotations culturally. And so, if a German speaker, for instance, hears Arnold Schwarzenegger speaking, they think he sounds like a farmer. Because it's a particular part of Austria. And so, So I think they try and choose voice actors which don't have that connotation. But quite often, they get it horribly wrong. And it's hilarious and it's great.
nice.
I always enjoyed, when I was learning German, watching The Simpsons in German. Because the guy who does Homer is actually, in some ways, funnier than the real Homer.
Wow.
His intonations, because he's really good at doing Homer, and he's got down. The actor's name is the American actor's name is Dan Castellaneta, so it's a very good way of speaking. But that German Homer is so funny. I don't even know half what he's saying. It's hysterical.
Yeah.
Because it's like, Homer, Germans can be a little strict, can be a little serious, whatever. And this guy's just off the rails, and it's absolutely spectacular.
Wow.
It's like a German clown, which doesn't exist. I don't think they have clowns in Germany.
No.
I don't think they're allowed.
Nope.
What do you mean they're
That's
not allowed?
funny.
They're illegal.
Not since 45.
Like Scientology.
Yeah.
That's
Alrighty,
funny.
clowns. Speaking of clowns, Griff. No.
Griff will get you back. Don't worry.
Yeah. I don't know who you're talking about, but whatever.
He'll get feedback.
What's yeah,
There
everyone? I hope you found it.
the clown.
Go ahead, Julie.
Someone got birds.
Okay, I'm gonna have to share this with you guys just a sec.
The German voice actor who does Homer Simpson is called Norbert Gastel.
Hilarious. Damn
Wow.
clown. That's
German clown.
frightening.
That's what you have with this movie, with a guy that looks
Wow.
like Bruce Willis.
Yeah.
You have these wonderfully looking clowns.
Yeah.
So there you go.
That's
German
terrifying.
clowns. They are. I think German clowns are scary.
Horrifying. Absolutely
Okay,
horrifying.
German shark bans clown masks for Halloween. Okay.
Let's
Yeah.
stick with
There
German
you go.
cars, folks. Am I right?
You're right. Yeah. Blinky
I know
the
you're right,
clown.
but you
Yeah.
I don't know who Blinky the clown is, but I am gonna look it up.
I think he was on.
There's Bozo
Oh,
the
late.
clown. Remember him?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we had that one here too.
Letterman
Oh.
had Flunky the clown, I think, too.
You guys want to see Bozo in Brazil?
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
Let me share this. Now I'm never sure. Okay, this one I can share the other. Here.
O meu bom dia! E a vocês aqui do auditório, bom dia! Ai, que bom dia!
Is this in Brazilian Portuguese? Yeah.
Yeah,
No wonder you're dancing
That's
in the
funny.
streets.
I'm trying
I
to
know,
close
right?
it. I can't find it
Yeah.
anymore.
It just reinforces that stereotype for me. So I'm confirmed. Everyone is just dancing in the street in Brazil.
Confirmed fact.
When
yeah.
I go there, that's what I'm going to expect. If I don't see it, I'm going to be a little upset. Just a little, I'll get over it with feijoada. But other than that, as long as I get
Feijoada
bowls
with
and bowls of
capivaras
feijoada,
and-
I'll be fine. Yeah, as long as I get bowls and bowls of, Brazilian food, I'll be fine. But, eventually I'll be okay. But I just,
Caipirinhas, feijoadas and caipirinhas and brigadeiros.
is it in American stuff is I've been to Brazilian restaurants where they have like the barbecue stuff where they come out with the big thing on the sword. Is that part of like the Brazil? You do that in Brazil or no? We have like
Yeah.
meats on the stick and they shave it on the plate.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's actually something they do in Brazil. Okay, I like that
Yeah.
stuff. Just
It's
Corações de
I
frango.
don't- yeah, that too. Chicken hearts.
Okay.
It's
Yes.
not so common. I think growing up was very common, but nowadays we have kilo restaurants. And I think ever since we got those, it's become cheaper to eat out, and it's not so common because those are all you can eat. Those steakhouses.
Yes.
So I haven't
yes,
eaten
yes.
in one of those that it can just come with the skewers and just because it's a lot of meat. So I haven't, but they still exist. They're culturally
That's good. I wasn't lied to about Brazilian barbecue. I feel good about that. Yeah.
I don't know
Lied
what
to
you were
about maybe
told
other
yesterday.
things. I'll probably lie to about the dancing in the streets, but I'm glad I wasn't lied to about
Well, that's-
Brazilian barbecue.
But you aren't necessarily lied to about dancing in the streets. Just depends where and when.
That's true. I just expect it everywhere at every time, but that's just me.
Yeah,
Carnival.
that too.
Yeah.
yeah, carnival for sure. You're gonna see much more than dancing in the streets.
I feel like it's not legit unless you pronounce it carnival.
I know. Yeah.
What do you have here, Joe? Do you want me to share this?
So this is a German thing, or probably Austrian thing, that your video reminded me of. This is
Let's see what
this
this
is live footage of when I find a particularly nice piece of wood.
Look at these guys. I need a hat like that.
I think I need to pause every now and then because it's another YouTube video and all of that.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, that we have like German.
Schuhplatte.
We have German
Holzhacke.
colonization here in Brazil, and the German colonization parties there's dancing and music a lot like that, but I've never seen with
Okay.
food.
They're making
This is how you
feijoada.
burn down the entire stage in one.
They're not making feijoada though, because they're
I know.
making Eisbein or something.
Yeah, I know.
You guys want to keep watching, or
Yeah, go
No,
ahead.
sorry. This was just a bad joke. That's all.
I actually like it. I like that dancing. That was cool.
Every time I start a new instrument, yeah.
It's a ritual. You have to, basically.
I thought it was funny how they're
It was-
cooking and other stuff in the middle of it. It's kind of different.
The dancing before the sawing. Makes sense.
You can tell it's from 1981 by like the safety precautions or lack thereof.
Rodízio grill Brazilian food in the U.S. I don't know what rodízio. I know what rodízio means. Rodízio is what that is. Okay, I'm like, rodízio is like going. How can I explain this? Rodízio means anything that goes around, that you change. That, for example,
Rotisserie?
I don't know if that's exactly the same, but I can say about anything. For example, in São Paulo, for example, there are so many cars that they have days of the week for cars that end in odd numbers and in even numbers. So they call that rodízio. It's like people can have two cars, one with like the ending 2 and the other with the ending 3, and then on Monday they'll go out with the car that ends in 2 and
Wow.
there's something like that, right? So this is a rodízio. Rodízio in this context, with food context, it comes from the meat houses, from those that come with the skewer and not a skewer, whatever that's called, the stick.
Churrasco?
Churrasco is barbecue, is the word for barbecue, and our barbecue is just different, but yeah. So rodízio means that they're gonna serve every kind of food that they have, every kind of meat that they have.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to keep coming with different types. So they're going to come with this meat and that meat and the other. We have, for example, pizza rodízio, which is like they have all flavors of pizza they have at the house. They're going to come and offer, and you can get a slice of this one, a slice of that one, a slice of the other. So rodízio means like to rotate or something like that. So yeah, so
they
rodízio
do that.
comes from.
They have something similar in Chinese tradition. It's dim sum, where they bring you the food on a cart and you basically just choose, right? So it's kind of like it's not a buffet. You don't go up and take it and go
Yeah.
back, but they're giving you,
They bring to the table all the options in it. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, that's cool. I like that. I don't have to move and get food. It's a great concept, by the way. I love it.
Mm.
Buffet, you got to get up. You're burning calories. Forget it. Just sit and bring the food to me like I'm a king, and I'll just point.
Wow.
Yeah, be right back. Heading to Brazil. Yeah, this is why we need a transporter technology like in Star Trek, because you just be like,
Right.
I want to go to I want to go have some Indian food. And be like, Taj Mahal, please. And just beam out.
By the way, I started watching the new series, I think, whatever that's called, of Star
Which one?
Trek. The new one, what is it called? One that's on
Strange New
Amazon
Worlds?
Prime. Probably. That goes back
Or is
to
it
the
the-
beginning.
Yeah,
was
that's
like-
that's Strange New Worlds.
What's his name? Pike?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've not
watched,
seen that
3
show
episodes.
yet, but yeah. Did you like it?
Yeah, but I don't really have a lot of knowledge of the whole, thing. But it was recommended. I watched with somebody who likes Star Trek, and it was like, oh no, let's watch this
Oh,
one.
man.
I'm like, sure, yeah, let's do it.
You were learning
It's
young Padawan.
I am. I know that reference. So you said you want to go to the Taj
Excellent,
Mahal, and then Joe has a reference here in Portuguese. Foi uma linda história de amor que me contaram e agora eu vou contar. Okay, that's a song called Taj Mahal in Portuguese.
Oh,
Jorge Ben.
Jorge Ben.
Okay, I'm gonna have to head off now, but this has been
no
great
worries.
fun.
Your cat is really cute, Juliana.
And
Yeah, I think it's probably time to.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks everybody again.
And-
Thank you so much. Hope you found everything informative, and I appreciate it so much. Yeah, thank you guys.
Great.
And
great
thank you guys for
Thank you.
having me just for the later portion of the show.
Anytime.
Oh, good.
Glad you
and
could
until
come.
next time.
Yep.
I can't see a thing. I'll open this one.
Nice.